One thing that I often
Look,
like
Mark, I would challenge you on that.
Yeah?
So imagine you walk into the room and you get the full red carpet treatment every day of your life. People literally look at you and say, when does Mark need a coffee? When do you need a cappuccino? Do you need anything? I'm constantly there for you. Now, how are you going to feel in 3 months if you get this treatment all the time?
So you're saying if I lived on the Geneva Lake and in a huge villa and had a chauffeur and people would be standing at attention every time I walk in, that I might not be a narcissist when I started working with a company, but I will be when I'm finished?
Yeah, exactly.
So I think it's totally interesting that you're turning the tables here and saying, is it the question of what I'm going in as or what the system makes me?
I think that we don't understand what power corrupts us. Mm-hmm. We are absolutely corruptible. I always find it interesting. Some leaders understand that power, but choose not to use that. That's what I was talking about. That makes a truly exceptional leader. I can be, but the pressure that these CEOs are under. And when I do a 360 feedback to CEOs, for example, the pressure that they are under is extreme. So,
absolutely. I have absolute empathy for them.
Yeah. So what happens is when we are under extreme pressure, one of our coping mechanisms is dissociation. So this is reality. This is dissociation. I'm going to create an alternate universal reality where my ego can deal with the pressures. Dissociating. That's where multiple personality disorder comes from. Mm-hmm. That's actually called a dissociated personality disorder. So dissociation is something we do all the time when you're under pressure or you need to put on your Mark face. You need to bring out that presence. Sometimes we dissociate into that identity. The higher you go up in the organization and the more pressure you feel, the more likely, and now I'm going to have people disagree with me, I'm sure, you are to dissociate to be able to do your job.
Yeah, it's kind of like being a doctor. You can't fall apart every time one of your patients dies.
Exactly. And that can be perceived as behavior that from someone from bottom looking up doesn't understand. And if we don't understand something, what do? We label it so that we can grab it and we can hold that. But trust me, I've worked with psychopaths. They would not be able to run a company. They would be too destructive.
I love this feedback because it sharpens my understanding of it, although it throws up questions as well. What you're basically saying, okay, sociopaths and psychopaths are not really the ones that make it to the top. There's other factors, and that the system has part of the cause that creates the effect.
Yeah.
Interesting.
How
do you? I mean, I think you have a wonderful South African example. If you look at some of the politicians that you have now in South Africa, and I don't want to. By the way, for any South Africans listening, I don't want to paint you in a bad light. We've got plenty of other crappy politicians all over the world. But since you're South African, I'll refer to this. I mean, that your absolute beacon figure is Nelson Mandela. I think a person who's gone through all sorts of trials and tribulation. But at the end of the day, I think there's a unanimous statement that he was an outstanding, humble humanitarian that led not because necessarily wanted to be up front, but because he fulfilled a role. And if we're looking at some of the people that followed in his footsteps, you have issues of corruption, taking advantage of the system. Do you have any statements of what can a society or an organization do to create an environment where not just our employees are sound and capable, but maybe also our C-level is sound? And that might be a question that's too difficult to answer. But any thoughts on that?